One time for the city. Yeah, same aura as before. The smoke.
All right, we got the gears going. Everything's set. Microphones are good. Let's get this thing rocking, man. Let's get this thing rocking. Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another Game of the Week preview. And with me on the other side is my guy, Bobby Manning. He covers the Celtics and the NBA for CLNS Media. You can go find him over at the Garden Report. He does the damn thing, does a phenomenal job covering the Celtics and the NBA, so make sure to go check out his work. But we got to tap in, man. We got to see how the Celtics are doing. We got to get his opinions on the Knicks. Things have changed, man. We're about to be 20 games in, so things have changed since game 2 of the regular season, so that's why we got him here today. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And hey, make sure to share the video, man. More the merrier. To all you Celtics fans that are in here that I know you're joining and trying to ruin our party over here. Welcome, man. Welcome. Bobby, my man, how you doing today?
Good, man. Looking forward to tomorrow. I think it'll be a good matchup. Good timing for both these teams to meet up. Knicks are rolling. Celtics got it together much more than they did last time around. So I think we're in for a good game. 8 o'clock tip-off. Not a weekend game. I'd probably be bumping for that one. I actually saw the tickets are decently affordable. I don't know if you'll be in the house, but this is a good one if the Knicks fans want to pop up and see their team. The prices aren't too high right now. So I'll be interested to see what the atmosphere is like there tomorrow. I think there'll be a heavy New York presence, I would imagine, given the circumstances.
Hey, man. We'll see, man. We'll see if I'm going to pull up in the building and see what I'm going to do. I can guarantee for sure that I will be there for the second matchup in February on a Sunday.
Yep.
That matinee game. I'll definitely be there. We'll see if I head out there tomorrow, man, and see if I'm going to be in the building for this one. TBD. We'll see what happens. But it will be a good one, man. I know STG Nick, shout out to one of our franchise channel members and big supporters of the show. He's going to be traveling from New York to go catch the team because, hey, from Penn Station all the way to TD Garden, you don't got to move far to go see either one of these teams. So it's an easy back and forth commute. But hey, man, this is what we're looking for, man. This is two iconic franchises.
Late night trains.
Late night trains. Look, man. 2 iconic franchises, 2 OG franchises nonetheless, duking it out, all right? This could be a good one. But, since we last spoke, you were pretty high on the Knicks coming into the season. Going to game 20 now. How do you feel about the Knicks right now?
They're still the favorite in the East to me, and I think that's all the more the case, given that the Cavs have struggled and the Celtics just saw Cleveland beat them for the second time this season. So I think that might be swaying me a little bit, just seeing how disappointing the Cavs have looked to begin this year. They're hurt. They're beat up. They've had some issues, but I expected more from them in terms of rising to the top of the East with the Knicks. Obviously, Detroit's taken that role of being what looks like the top competitor with New York to begin this year. And I guess that's not a surprise because you guys remember how that first round series went against them and how tough to beat they were and scrappy and just relentlessly they played in that series. And I'm slightly surprised by that they've taken that leap because I thought the Malik Beasley loss would be a bigger deal for them. He was their heart and soul in a lot of ways last year and was such an important part of that leap that they took. And a couple of the other additions that they made there, good offseason, obviously was able to get them through that. And I feel like they really don't necessarily need him at this point. And we'll see what ends up happening there. So I still have the Knicks by a hair over the Detroits and other contenders there. Orlando obviously got off to a super disappointing start. I was ultra high on them, and they were right there with New York for me in terms of who I wanted to pick out of the East. But I did end up leaning New York to begin this year, and I still feel that way because the coaching change has made a difference. I feel like Brunson is back at that, not quite NBA MVP, but borderline MVP, All NBA kind of conversation, given what he's done to start this year. And the supporting cast has been great, particularly Mitchell Robinson, who once he was able to get on the floor, has just made a massive impact. And that's the thing right now, right? It's that old Rob Williams 2022 conversation where if he's healthy and himself, the Knicks look like they're going to be on another level from everybody else in the East. But if he's hurt or out of the mix, they're a little more vulnerable. And there are some teams that could give them a tough time here in the East, including the Celtics, who, if they're fully healthy and are maybe a 7 or 8 seed, that's a tough first round, depending on how healthy Boston is. Is Jason Tatum on the floor? There's a lot of questions about where this team's going to be come April. But I do feel like right now, from a Celtics perspective, feel pretty good after 20 games about this team making the playoffs, which is what I expected from them this season as well.
So you're still high on the Knicks, which I love to hear, man. I mean, New York, they've had their ups and downs. Orlando has given them fits, but I know you covering the Celtics. Orlando has given the Celtics fits in the past as well, being the physical team that they are. But Knicks got another crack at it to see if they can, manhandle them and just rightfully so, assert themselves as the dominant team in the East. So they'll get another shot at it this week. So hopefully they can come out because they're down 0-2 right now to this team. So they got to beat them there. And then if they beat the Raptors, either be the Miami Heat or the Orlando Magic that they could get to compete against in the
Yeah, you excited about the
semifinals
cup?
for the NBA Cup. Yeah, man. So we'll see what happens there. But you're talking about your Celtics, and they're starting to impress a bit, man, especially being with the massive overhaul that they've had this offseason, right? Al Horford went to Golden State. Tatum is recovering from an injury. You traded KP, you traded Drew Holiday, and now you've reshuffled the deck, so to speak. But yet they're competing, man, and they're looking pretty good while doing it. I mean, you just had Peyton Pritchard do some miraculous things not too long ago, a couple nights ago, or last night, I can't remember. But
Last night, yep.
you know, looks like the Celtics are doing well. So how do you feel about the Celtics right now?
They're competing. They're ultra competitive. I think they're 11th in net rating. They're borderline top 10 team right now statistically, and they probably should be a win or two better than they are right now. They're 11-9 through the first 20 games. They've blown a couple games late. Opening night they had two chances at the buzzer. I can point to a million different other results down the stretch of the year that they've squandered, but they've gotten a little better in crunch time. They're going to play a ton of close games. That's what it's going to be this year. They're not going to be blowing anybody out with the roster that they have. For the most part, they've gone against the injured teams like the jawless Grizzlies and New
Mm.
Orleans without Zion early, and they were able to roll past those teams. But on the average night against a good team, they're going to be playing down to the wire like they did against Minnesota, like they did yesterday against Cleveland, even though they built a 20-point lead midway through that game, still went down the last shot. So that's going to decide how good they are this year. Can they win those close games? And through the course of these games, they play great basketball. Their offense is fourth in the league at this point. Their defense, depending on which stat you're using, the per 100 is 18th. The points per game is third because they play at a pretty slow pace once again this year. So they've found ways controlling the pace, controlling the turnover differential, the shot margin. They're just a smart team with how they approach the little things that decide games. They were dominating the turnover margin to begin this year. They get on the offensive glass. That will be a battle in pretty much every game, even though they stink on the defensive rebounding side of things. So they're just finding ways to make up for the lack of talent, the losses over the offseason, and I get for playing teams that probably don't pay as close of attention to those little details. And they've been able to take advantage of a number of those kinds of opponents early. And this is what I've tried to stress, Alex. Like that people are going to see this year the impact of Joe Mazzulla. I think he's an excellent coach. Still don't love the way he coached that Knicks series in May, but I think the bulk of his NBA coaching career has been excellent with how he's coached his team's offense, how he's gotten their defense to a consistent level. And early on this year, they were the only team in the East that ranked top 10 in offense, top 10 in defense. So they've punched above their weight, above their talent level this year. The buy-in has been excellent. Guys are committing to sitting some nights, playing other nights when necessary. They've used the entire roster, even guys you wouldn't have predicted being involved coming in, like 19-year-old rookie Ugo Gonzalez and
Mm.
two-way big rookie Amari Williams, who was on the floor to close last game. So they've used everybody. And Jaylen, the head of the Snakes, been excellent. Everything you could have imagined from him to start this year. Derek White, Payne Pritchard, a little bit of a slower start to the season for those guys. But Pritchard's coming around, as you mentioned, with the 42 last night, and Derek got a night off in Cleveland as well. So he'll be fresh for this game on Tuesday and certainly makes a defensive impact whenever he's on the floor. So that alongside figuring out center with Nemesh Keita, who's started every game he's been available for and has been excellent, has made this a team that's above 500. And I think that's where they should be right now, given how they've played. They're a slightly above 500 team. And where does that measure out to at the end of the year? 42 wins, 43, 44, 45. That's still the range I'm predicting that this team's going to be at.
Okay. And I feel like part of the success that you've seen for the Celtics thus far is Mazzulla's willingness to go deeper into his bench. What do you think about that, given the pace of play, the injuries that we've seen throughout the league so far? I mean, there's been a lot of injuries just to begin this year, right? I mean, LeBron didn't start the season. If you want to just look from a Knicks perspective, you got OG out. Mitch is, on load management so far. Guys have just been in and out of the lineup. Brunson got injured going against Orlando, had a ankle sprain. He's back, looking like nothing's ever happened. But guys are working through injuries and just trying to, stay afloat of this 82 game regular season. So, what do you make about Mazzulla going to his bench?
I love that you say that because I wrote about that recently, and it's hard to say, right, whether it's a reason that they've avoided injuries. But if you look at the Celtics this year, obviously Tatum's been out the whole way from the Achilles injury in that Knicks series, but they lost Luka Garza to 1 game with a concussion. They lost Nemesh Keita to 1 game with an ankle sprain before they, load managed him on Sunday. And that's it. That's all the injuries they've dealt with this year. They've gotten 20 games from Jaylen, despite him going through some bumps and bruises, playing a physical style. Derek missed his first game, probably for a rest night. He's probable to begin Tuesday here. And then Keita, they rest, and that's it. Like, so in total, 4 games due to load management / injury. That's extraordinary given the injuries we've seen to start this year around the league. And is that because they've played at one of the slowest paces in the league? Is that because of the depth that they've utilized and the minutes that they've managed with certain guys by going in deeper into their bench? That's what Mazzulla seemed to think when I asked him. And obviously, I'm sure the training staff's on top of things too to begin this year and figuring out what everyone should play and when and all of that. So it's remarkable. There's always luck involved with injuries, but that has been a big part of their success to begin this year is the fact that everybody's mostly been available. The downside to that is what's this going to look like if an important guy misses some time here? Because that does inevitably happen through the course of a season. I don't think they can afford to lose Jaylen at all for any amount of time here and remain competitive. I think Derek, who they've struggled to win without in the past,
Hmm.
I'm surprised they were able to win a game without him on Sunday. And obviously the Cavs were missing Jared Allen, had some issues of their own there. But I was stunned that they were able to win a game without Keita, without White yesterday, 2 starters down on in terms of what is NBA pedigree, a relatively thin team. But you're seeing between Jordan Walsh emerging as a starter who didn't really play through his first 2 seasons, Josh Minot playing excellent coming over from the Timberwolves, Gonzalez, who I mentioned as a rookie, making an impact. There's just countless names you could throw out. Anthony Simons has been solid. Luka Garza, Xavier Tillman in a spot start. There's just so many names you can throw around that have done subtle but impactful things for this team to begin this year. And yes, Mazzulla does believe that that's where the league's heading. More bodies, more maximum effort through those minutes, able to rotate guys in and out of games, play at a higher pace through those stretches because you're
Hmm.
pretty much pulling guys in and out of the game like it's hockey. That's what the Pacers did last year and inspired a lot of teams to do it this year. And the Celtics have utilized that well. And I think that bodes well for buy-in too, because everybody feels like they could be involved potentially on any given night. Anybody feels like they could sneak into the starting lineup on a spot, given the matchups or injuries or whatever else could happen there. I mean, Tillman, to name one, sat out 9 of the last 10 games before he entered the starting lineup yesterday, and that's got to be great for morale to have that sort of flexibility and to know that anyone could be called on all the way down the G League to begin this season.
Absolutely. Look, and I think that's the same thing that we're seeing with the New York Knicks as well, because Mike Brown has certainly emphasized the same thing as going, deep into his bench, which has been, the opposite, of what Tom Thibodeau did last season, right? He knew who the 6, 7 guys were going to be playing most of the minutes on a night-to-night basis, and when he did go to the bench, it was a little too late against the Indiana Pacers. So we're seeing Mike Brown willing to give guys opportunities, even second, third chances to show that they can, contribute to a team, right? We're seeing Tyler Kolek, who's now been brought back into the fold of things and, had a little bit of an uneven start to the beginning of the season. Now we're seeing that he's contributing defensively. He had 2 really nice dimes last night to Karl Anthony Towns, but, you see Mike Brown's just giving guys, especially with OG missing some time, just an opportunity to show that, hey, we can contribute as well as Andrew Shaman. I mean, with Shaman and OG both out, it's just opened up 2 slots for guys to really go out there and prove themselves. And so whether Hukporti gets out there, whether Diawara gets out there for some minutes. Like Diawara is still struggling, trying to figure out his footing and gain some confidence. He is a second round pick, and for those type of guys, it's a little bit more of a reach that they're going to hit in the NBA. But Mike Brown's trying to do the same thing and trying to emphasize going to like a 10, even 11 when we started the season type rotation, and you're starting to see like the payoff with guys who are slowly developing, and not saying these guys are going to be, the greatest thing on earth, even though they're getting these minutes, but it's nice to see that he's trusting these guys because you never know what could happen in the postseason. We got to call somebody off the bench. So it's nice seeing that Mike Brown is doing the same thing as well. And since you brought up Mazzulla, I got to ask you this question, man, because it's just been a little different for me watching the Knicks put up so many threes. Okay. And, look, Boston right now, pulling up the numbers, the amount of 3-point attempts, Boston is third right now with 43.
Yeah, they're down a little bit.
Down a little bit. That's hilarious. The Knicks are not too
50,
far off.
60 a game.
And they're actually down a little bit because they were in the top three for a minute. They're 41.3 right now. But as somebody who's watched the Celtics win a championship, putting up a lot of threes, do you think that's sustainable? Because last year against us, you truly lived and died by the three against New York, and that didn't pan out. But do you think that's a winning? Do you think that's a winning way to go win an NBA championship?
I think it depends on what else you have. Yeah, like you got to have multiple elements. And I think what was great about that championship team is, yes, they shot a lot of threes, but they also had Porzingis as an outlet during the year. Obviously, he was hurt in the playoffs, but that was a great post-up option for them, and that was super efficient. Jaylen gets downhill into the mid-range to the basket, so they had a different element there through him, and alongside Tatum, who obviously put up a lot of threes and jump shots himself. There was just numerous different weapons and things you could go to there. They were great offensive rebounding. Drew could make a play from pretty much anywhere on the court. So they were versatile. And I think last year they did grow a little too reliant on the three. They tried to put it into overdrive and take 50, 60 many nights. And obviously, I think shot selection in one of those games in particular against New York did hurt them when they went up big in those games. This year, I think it's a little more complicated than just threes. I do think they're overall too jump shot reliant, and it's why they're last in the league in free throws. That was a big conversation over the weekend. Jalen has had numerous complaints this year about how he's been officiated, and he is the one who goes downhill. Almost has played like Giannis this year, the way he's attacked the basket for one, and then two, he's been one of the higher mid-range shooters in the league in terms of attempts. So he's utilizing that range. It's where he feels comfortable. He's been super effective and efficient from that range. He's right up at 28 points per game, taking insanely difficult shots. And I think there have been stretches in games where they've started to miss some turnovers they've done a good job with, so that hasn't hurt them too much. But when they do go cold offensively, they start to run into trouble because they attack the offensive glass aggressively. It's been a weapon for them, but that can go the other way, obviously, if they're not able to get those rebounds. And the transition defense has been tough at times here. So they're fourth in offense. And I say this on the postgame show every night. It is a miracle that this team is fourth in offense, pretty much just taking jump shots, never shooting free throws, never cutting, not running much. They're a pretty slow-paced team. They don't post up. They don't really hit rollers. So they are playing isolation basketball, shooting tough jump shots, and have 3, 4 offensive creators between the guards and Anthony Simons off the bench. And they're fourth in offense. So I think that does beg the question of, all right, is this going to come down to earth a little bit? Probably. But I also think that they've been versatile, flexible, and it does say a lot about the players involved, Brown and Pritchard in particular, who's also been an elite mid-range shooter to begin this year, that they can get their shot off at that level. And Brown has been consistent. I'd say he's probably had 2 clunkers out of 20 games and then 18 excellent nights, a triple-double on Sunday where he went into more facilitator mode. So that was the big story coming into this year, right? Is Jalen going to be able to lead this team without Tatum? This is his opportunity to show what he's made of. And he hasn't made it about that from like a media perspective. He hasn't talked a lot about it that way, but the play has spoken for itself. He's been out of this world to begin this year, and the team's record won't be good enough to get him into an MVP conversation, but right now he's a slam dunk all NBA guy returning to that team.
Okay. And the reason I asked is because when I'm looking at the Knicks, right, like they attempted 34 three-pointers per game last season. So most of their focus was attacking inside the paint, right? Right
Yeah.
now it's 45% for New York. 45% of their shots just based on three-point attempts, over their field goal attempts. It's like 45% of their shots is coming from downtown. I'm like, this is just a drastically different offense. And
Do you like it?
eh, I feel like it's worked for them. It's worked out for them so far. I mean, the crazy thing is that they're shooting so well without Cat really being that like guy from downtown right now. Like he's shooting a career low under 34% from three. So to see that the Knicks are shooting that well, like once he, gets better and the percentage goes up, yeah, you can't be upset if these guys are just knocking it down like they're true, practice
Well, what
shots.
impressed me about him in that playoff series last year is the Celtics took the three away from him. Remember, there were some games where he'd shoot
Yep,
like one or two threes, and when we talked about that series going in, I was like, all right, how's he going to handle that? And he just went to the basket and scored again and again and again. Drew fouls, played forcefully. I was so impressed by the playoff series that he had against Boston because he took what the Celtics gave him. And that was a big part of how that series ended up finishing. And by the end of it, they had no answer for him. So he's turned a corner for me among players, and I've always been a fan of him. Obviously, the questions with his game are obvious, but I think he's in a good spot at that four next to Robinson. And we want to see a little bit more of that once Robinson got back last spring. Uh, Thibodeau at times hesitated to go there, and I like the fact that they're embracing that combination because I think it can be the best of both worlds for those guys. Towns wants to play on the perimeter, doesn't have to play as much pick and roll defense when Robinson's out there, and obviously that puts Robinson in the rebounding position where he's so effective. So it does knock a guy off the floor. I feel like Josh Hart's been more interchangeable this year, although it's good to see him playing better of late. He's dangerous when he's playing at his best. So they have interchangeability this year, and that's the beauty, as you mentioned, of a coaching staff that's going to be more open-minded and flexible with the way that they play. I like the Shaman involvement to begin this year before he got hurt, and obviously I thought Yabusele would be a little more involved than Clarkson. We'll see what ends up happening there in a playoff setting, but they have options this year, and that gives them, alongside their great starting lineup, uh, a huge advantage, I feel like, over most of the other teams in the East. This team's just packed with talent, especially at the top half of the roster there. And
for
I think they're
sure.
in a good place. Now, the health,
That's
that
the big
does
thing,
worry.
Bobby.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
big thing.
OG
It's
every
going to come
year is
down
a
to health.
hamstring, right?
Yeah, I mean, and speaking about OG, right? Like it's still TBD on when he will return, and things are looking pretty hairy, man, for when he will return. And speaking about Harry, man, let's talk about Harry's because Harry's now one of our new sponsors. So shout out to Harry's. So I've been
Love Harry's.
let me tell you, man. Let me tell you, everybody out there. So I've tried pretty much every razor under the sun. Some dull, too fast, some irritate your skin, and some are overpriced for no reason. Then I switched to Harry's Plus. And honestly, this is the best shaving experience I've had. Right away, you notice the weighted metal handle. It's solid, it's balanced, it feels like something that's actually built well. The blades are German engineered, each one honed at three angles so it cuts clean without tugging. And the pivoting system, it actually works. Gets around your jawline, under the chin, all the tricky spots without clogging like those drugstore blades. Plus, Harry's owns their own blade factory. No middleman, no markups. They keep it affordable while making a razor that feels premium. Right now, you can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10. That's right, $10. That's the new razor, a 5 blade cartridge, shave gel, and a travel cover. Head to harrys.com/KFTV to claim yours. That's harrys.com/KFTV. Look sharp, feel sharp. You're going to like this one. All right. Let's get back to it. Let's talk about this matchup, Bobby. Let's talk about this matchup because I want to get into the nitty gritty of things that's about to happen tomorrow between these two teams because these two teams are now in totally different places. The last time they played, as I said, was the second game of the regular season, and the Knicks won that one 105-95. So it was a close one in the end, but New York for the most part maintained dominance once the second quarter came around. And I want to see how these two teams match up because one, you're not going to have OG tomorrow, who would probably get the Jaylen Brown assignment. So I'm curious to see how Mikal Bridges defends him. But I'm also looking to see now that they're for the Knicks perspective, now that they're more comfortable in Mike Brown's system offensively, how is it going to look against the Boston Celtics tomorrow? So that's one of the biggest things I'll be looking out for in tomorrow's matchup.
Yeah, the rebounding battle is everything there, and I don't know what they can do. Their answer has been to just get aggressive on the other offensive glass. So I think if they can beat New York there and keep that relatively even, that's their hope of trying to stay competitive there. But as much as they've gone to bigger lineups, Minot and Walsh able to give them more rebounding at the 4 spot next to Kada, they're still last in defensive rebounding, and that's just an area that they knew going into the year they weren't going to be able to be super competitive in. So they've just tried to find other ways to get around it. They'll force turnovers. They'll shoot a lot of threes. They'll just find other ways to take advantage of the areas that the other team potentially doesn't have as big of an advantage in. But that was what I felt like led to that monstrous 28-point win in the second quarter. I think it was in that first Knicks Celtics game. I mean, they just got every rebound, it felt like, over an extended stretch there. And I don't even think Robinson played in that game, did he? That was just Towns and company, I want to say. So um, it's daunting, the level of physicality that the Celtics will be going up against there. But on the other hand, the Knicks have to find an option for Jaylen. And normally that would be OG in isolation, and you feel good about just putting him on that matchup and taking care of things. I think it's a tougher matchup for Hard and Bridges and certainly Brunson, who they're going to try to attack with Brown over and over and over again, because he's just powered through players, gone to his spots from the mid range, and has been lethal from there throughout this season. So he'll be a handful for New York. They'll probably try to crowd him. They'll probably try to throw some extra bodies at him. But does that free up White and Pritchard and some of these other shooters here? There's still a lot of shooting on this roster, despite the Celtics struggling to begin this year. And honestly, all the coaches at all these games to begin the year, Alex, and, maybe it's just a little flattery, but there's a big feeling among the teams who go up against the Celtics this year that, yeah, they don't have as much talent as in years past. And obviously Tatum's out of the picture right now, but this is still a dangerous team. The experience they have, the coaching, and certainly the players who have been through those championship runs at the top end of the roster, there's still guys you fear. And I don't know. How do you feel going up against the Celtics this year when you see them on the calendar? Obviously, the first game was a little wonky because you didn't really know who they were, and there was a chance that they were going to be bad this year. But now that you see them competing and showing shades of the past selves here, like, do you get a little nervous seeing them on the schedule just because of what they've been, the past couple of years here?
I wouldn't say I'm like nervous, but like I treat everyone like with respect that anyone can go out there and go win. I mean, outside of like the truly like down to the dump teams like the Wizards, even though they just beat the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, but that's a whole other story. But when I look at the Celtics, it is still a talented team. They can compete. Pritchard's easily able to go off and just be a monster from downtown. Jaylen Brown is still a tough cover. Derek White is a great, utility man. He can do a lot of things for the Celtics that they just need. I think the biggest area of concern for the Celtics is just, as you mentioned, is the rebounding. And I think New York is going to win when it comes to the second chance opportunities, even if their shots are not falling. But, I just pulled up here the last 5 games for this team, and the biggest concern right now for the Knicks is just being able to guard the three. And over the last 5 games, the Celtics have a 3-point, they're fifth right now over the last 5 games in 3-point percentage, shooting 39%. Right behind them at 6 are the Knicks, also shooting at 39%. So, while the Knicks are dishing out all these threes and drilling them, they like to give up a lot as well. And, when it comes to attempts, the Celtics have a higher percentage with slightly more attempts than New York right now. So that's probably going to be my biggest concern in tomorrow's matchup is, will the Knicks be ready to shut down any team that's willing to shoot threes, in particular, a good shooting team like the Boston Celtics. So that's going to be my biggest concern because if the Knicks allow the Celtics just to get these, in rhythm, practice shot threes, which look, through the regular season, they've been allowing teams to do that. And you can just go look at any matchup, whether it be the Orlando Magic, anybody, okay? Teams, they don't even shoot the three ball that well, like the Magic. They just go up there, shoot practice shot threes, and drill them. And then next thing you know, you're in a game or you're losing the game. And so for the Knicks tomorrow, while I'm not like terrified of the Celtics, they still pose a threat just because they are a good 3-point shooting team. And when you have somebody like Jaylen Brown who's able to get into the teeth of the defense, finish around the rim, and just, use his gravity to create open shots for guys on the perimeter, that's going to be where that's where I'm looking at. Can they slow Jaylen Brown down so that way he's not allowing guys on the perimeter to get open shot threes? And can the Knicks just, be, attentive to guys who are on the perimeter and try to slow them down?
Yeah, for sure. I think the key of this game is going to be whether the Celtics can effectively pressure Brunson with Walsh on his own, because he's done a great job. I was looking at the numbers earlier, and this will be his 9th straight game that he starts here. He held Maxey to 1-9. He held Jaren Jackson to 0 for 5. He's guarded Paolo, Franz Wagner. He's just taken on the most challenging matchups throughout these games. Michael Porter Jr., I can just keep rattling off the names here. He held Harden to 3-7 during his hot streak that he was on a week or two ago. So he out of nowhere has become a force for this team, and they'll put him on Brunson. I think there's no doubt about that to begin this game. And how does he hold up? He has frustrated a lot of opposing stars and has done a great job utilizing his length. He studies tendencies pretty extensively to prepare for these kind of matchups, and this has been his job. He and Jalen were flying on the plane early this season when Walsh was stuck on the bench and couldn't get into games. And Brown was like, I think we could use a guy like you to just defend the best player and just focused on that. And Minot's done a little bit of that. They've put Ugo in some games to focus on that. But Walsh is the one who has actually come in and thrived in that role. And obviously, if Brunson gets going here in a game like this, it's going to be tough to slow him down as the night goes on. And obviously, he'll get to the free throw line and do all the stuff he does there. If Walsh can just frustrate him, and that's something he's been able to do through a range of opponents, this becomes a much more even game at that point. So it's been a nice dynamic for the Celtics over the last handful of games here. And he's been able to make himself a threat offensively too. Got a double-double in Cleveland. Real revelation for this team. The biggest revelation on this team has been Kata, who's just been a rocket center so far. But Walsh going from the G League year one, last year DNP most nights, this year to start, first 5 games or so, DNP or garbage time, started to think, all right, is this guy going to make it here? Is he an NBA player? And then on a snap of a finger, he's guarding the best player on the other team every single night and is starting. It's been a really cool story, and obviously, it's the kind of opportunity you can get on a team like this. So he'll be excited about this matchup, fired up, ready to go, and this team has competed in every game. So that's what I'm expecting tomorrow, a competitive game. And, they're going to have a fully healthy roster. The Knicks are a little banged up here. I think this is actually an opportunity for them to steal a game after losing that one at MSG earlier this year. And I was looking at the record coming in. The Knicks have been unstoppable at MSG. It's the road where they've slipped up a little bit to start this year. So we'll see if the change of setting has any impact there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Knicks are great at home and struggle on the road, my man. They struggle on the road. They got 2 wins on the road, I believe, so far. Let me just double check that and make sure that's right. But yeah, they are not a great road team. They gotta fix that up because hey, once you get into the postseason, things change. Things do certainly change. So let's see. Let me pull up the stats right here as it loads. And the Knicks on the road are 3-5. So I misspoke. They are 3-5 on the road. So there you go. One of those wins being in Brooklyn, but hey, that's our summer vacation home. So if we want to count that, we're going to count that. Okay. But they're 3-5 on the road, which is, they can be better, but it's not as terrible as everyone's making out to seem, because I know for a minute they're like, oh my God, can we win on the road? Well, now they have another chance to go into a hostile territory, because I know how the Boston fans are. They love to boo. They love to do everything, man. They love to throw everybody off their rocker especially once New York comes walking through those doors. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But even though both these teams are going to be up for the challenge and for totally different reasons, There is one matchup that I'm looking at in particular for this one, and that is the Mikal Bridges and Jaylen Brown matchup. Jaylen Brown, we already know what he is. He's having a very strong season, man. And I like Jaylen Brown too. I just like his competitive spirit. I like the way that he approaches the game. I like that bully ball nature that he has. He's averaging 28.4 points on the season, 6 boards, averaging close to 5 assists, shooting 49% from the field. The guy is having a stellar start to the season without Tatum, and really showing that he is capable of just shouldering that responsibility of being the top dog while Tatum's out. So I like to see it. I am a fan of his game. Obviously, not gonna be a fan of it tomorrow. I'm gonna want the Knicks to win, but there is going to be a guy who has a big responsibility and is trying to slow him down, and that is Mikal Bridges. Now, both these guys probably entering this game with two different mindsets. Jaylen Brown probably thinking about, hey, Mikal Bridges got those steals on me in the postseason to call game. And, Bridges is thinking, all right, Brown's going to probably want to come back and show that he's better. He's leading this team. And I got to show that I'm well equipped defensively to slow him down. And we've seen even last year with the first year of Mikal Bridges that he struggled a bit just dealing with the physicality of Jaylen Brown, but very curious to see how he handles this matchup this season. Once again, going against a physical player like Jaylen Brown. Like, he had his opportunities in game one. Obviously, most of the responsibility was on OG. Now I'm very curious to see when you have to go 30 plus minutes, and that is going to be your primary assignment for the night. So that matchup is going to stick out to me more so than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, I guess, what they're going to have to do against them without OG out there. I think that's just the opening for the Celtics right there. Is you wouldn't feel as great about the matchup if OG was going to be holding down that Jalen matchup and frustrating him and doing what he does defensively there. But Bridges, I feel like, I don't know. I'll have to look back at the numbers in the past, but that feels like a little bit of a physically imposing matchup for him. I like Bridges against a White, a Pritchard, the guard type matchups. Brown, I don't know, especially the style he's playing at right now, where he's going to challenge you physically and go at you and play around the rim. And the way he played off 2 feet, drawing 16 free throws in Cleveland was just stellar, especially given what the team needed right there. And I don't know if the Knicks are going to throw extra pressure at him, try to, double team him. He's going to make those passes. And that probably is the better option for New York because the Celtics haven't shot well to begin this year. Put the pressure on White, put the pressure on Pritchard, those other guys to beat you. I think that's probably where you start if you're the Knicks, especially given that it's going to be Bridges one-on-one with Brown, who I think is probably not super well suited for that matchup in isolation. Obviously, they're going to be going at Brunson too and on switches and all that, trying to put Towns in some actions. So if I'm New York, I would throw some help, try to get the ball out of Jalen's hands, try to frustrate him. On the other hand, if Jalen's just cooking and he's the only one doing anything, that's what ended up happening in Minnesota the other night. Do the other guys kind of get out of the mix? Do they, go cold because they haven't gotten a lot of shots? Does the isolation thing start to slow down as the game goes on and there's more and more pressure on Jalen to create pretty much every basket? Be interested to see which way the game swings in that sense. I don't know how the Knicks have been guarding this year, whether they've been more aggressive trying to get the ball out of the opposing best player's hands or where they're just willing to let that guy beat them and take care of everything else. But it's an interesting decision against the Celtics team that hasn't shot super well to begin this year.
They've been mixing and matching what they want to do defensively and seeing what works and just, trying to tailor it to the specific matchup. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. To me, there's not really like a set game plan on what they're in how they want to consistently defend on a night to night basis. Yes, they have their principles and what they're trying to do, which is, one, protect the paint, which hasn't really changed from Tom Thibodeau, but in how they want to force guys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see doubling tomorrow to get the ball out of Jalen's hand. I'm sure they'll want to go one-on-one first to see can Bridges handle that matchup and force Brown to make a tough shot or just, give up the rock. But if it does go in the direction of Jaylen Brown just getting his, then I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see some doubles and just try to force him to get somebody else involved and get the ball out of his hand. But outside of Brown and Bridges, is there any other matchup that you're looking at that you're like, this is something I'm going to be keying in on?
Yeah, obviously the big men. Is Kata able to hold up against Towns? I think they'll probably rely on Kata to guard him straight up. And then, if it's going to be Robinson Towns together a lot of the game, how do the Celtics play that? Like, do they try to match up with that with some bigger bodies, or do they just play their own game, try to run and play a little faster, put more shooting on the floor, more guys who can beat Towns in matchups if he's put in actions? I think that's probably the way to go. Because again, this team's not going to compete on the boards in this game. Maybe they can match the amount of offensive rebounds that the Knicks are able to get there, but the Knicks are going to get on the offensive glass in this game, just like Detroit did. Detroit came to Boston last Wednesday on that 13-game win streak. Celtics were down Kate in that game, and the Celtics just knew we're not even going to try here. Like they didn't play centers. They put Minot at center. The Pistons grabbed 21 offensive rebounds, and they just limited the damage there. And were able to grab offensive rebounds on the other end of the floor and shoot and do everything they needed to win that game. So the rebounding battle is not the whole ball game. It's going to be the one that the Celtics lose in this one. But can they find the other areas to take advantage of? I love the way they forced turnovers this year. I love the way that they've been able to grab offensive rebounds, do other things that just keep them competitive themselves. So shooting, the big thing here. I think they're going to have to shoot well to win this game. If the Knicks, obviously, who shoot as many threes as they do now effectively, are able to match or exceed that, there's no way that the Celtics are going to win this game. So a lot of it's going to be make-miss in this game here, but the Celtics have opportunities to go at Brunson, frustrate him on both ends of the floor. And I feel decent about the Celtics in this one. I tell it like it is. If I wasn't feeling good coming into a game and, I liked where the Knicks were at, I'd say it. But, Knicks are a little banged up, a little vulnerable coming on the road. I think there's a good spot for Boston, especially coming off a game where they played well themselves.
Yeah, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it's we'll see how it all pans out tomorrow. But what we're talking about is just what are each team willing to stomach, right? And speaking about stomaching, the holidays are here, which means gatherings, dinners, celebrations, and for a lot of us, a couple drinks. But we all still have things to do the next morning. Workouts, errands, work, family commitments. That's why I use ZBiotics, pre-alcohol probiotic drink. This is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic designed by PhD scientists. Here's the science. When you drink, your body creates an unwanted byproduct in the gut. ZBiotics is engineered to break out that byproduct down, is engineered to break that byproduct down so you can wake up feeling good and ready to go. Just make it your first drink of the night. Take care of yourself, hydrate, and you're setting yourself up for a better tomorrow. If I use it before a recent night out, and the next morning, I was up early, got my workout in, got work done, no issues. It made a noticeable difference. So if you want to feel your best during the busiest time of the year, grab some ZBiotics. Go to zbiotics.com/KFTV and use KFTV for 15% off your first order. That's zbiotics.com/KFTV. Make the most of every toast this holiday season. Just don't forget ZBiotics. All right. So while we see what each team wants to stomach for tomorrow in terms of matchups, whether it's rebounding or allowing teams to shoot threes, before I let you out of here, Bobby, I got a big question for you. Who's going to be your X factor in tomorrow's matchup? So who's your X factor for the Celtics?
X factor for the Celtics has to be Derek White. He has struggled to be in this season, and I think he's a guy any team, any fan would look at going into this year with Tatum out and say, oh, that guy's going to take one of the biggest leaps in the league this year. More responsibility. You know what he's capable of. Everybody loves Derek White. And I think there was general belief to start the season that he would be a borderline all-star, given how much opportunity he would have on this team. But it's gone the other direction. Defensively, give him credit. He stayed in it. I think among players who get the most blocks and steals together in the league, he's right up there, if not at the top. But offensively, he has struggled, shooting in the 30s from the field, low 30s from three. And he looks frustrated, while he's missing these shots. It looks like he's in his head right now. And they got him a day off on Sunday, as I mentioned. Can he come back and have a huge game? That Detroit matchup I mentioned last week, for all the issues that the Celtics had through the course of that game in the early quarters, once White started draining shots in the second half, I think he had like 23 of his 25 after halftime. it was game over. He was the guy who put them over the top in that game, and they were able to beat the Pistons. So that's the kind of impact I think he'll need to have in this one. Pritchard has struggled against the Knicks throughout his career. I feel like, I'll look back at the numbers after this and pull them all up, but just off my memory, he's had a tough time getting a shot off against this team. Some of the bigger bodies, the Brunson matchup's tough there for him too. They're kind of going at it a lot of the time. So this could be a game where Pritchard takes a step back, but White has played well against this team, I feel like, and is in a good position for a bounce back game with the extra rest here. And he did get it going against Detroit a couple games ago. So it's been a challenging season for him. There are signs that it's turning around and starting to go in the right direction, but he cannot have a clunker here. And the Celtics have much of a expectation to win, especially if the Knicks are going to bring some extra pressure on Jaylen. It'll be Derek who's forced to beat them. And can he do that? Obviously, he's capable of it, but this season it's been a little bit harder for him. I saw the stat on Synergy, they posted it. The players who have increased their dribble off the dribble scoring the most this year, they've had to do more scoring off the dribble compared to last year. The most is Drew Holiday, understandable, going from like the fifth option in Boston to one of the top ones in Portland. And then number two is Derek White, going from, let's say, fourth or fifth option on Boston to number two on many nights right now. So him having a bounce back game is going to be important. And then for the Knicks, it's always Robinson. Like he has the chance to dominate and break this game open in an area where the Celtics are completely vulnerable. And if he can have 20 rebounds, it's going to be hard for the Celtics to overcome that. And there's obviously a chance that he could be grabbing every offensive rebound out there alongside Town. So I'll go with Robinson, as I often do. I mean, he's a guy who makes this Knicks team a championship contender to me, because he's a guy that not many teams can match up with. Obviously, Detroit can with there and there. Those two guys are kind of like two in the same going at it there, but not many other teams can.
Okay. I like so you got Derek White and Mitchell Robinson. I like those selections. For me, for New York, I'm going to go with Josh Hart, just because I feel like it's a mixed bag. You never know what you're going to get out of Josh when it comes to going against the Celtics. Sometimes it's going to be a great one. Sometimes it's going to be a lackluster one. In this matchup, since it's not, the full Celtics, and based on what he's been doing so far over the last 10 games, like I'm very confident that Josh Hart's going to continue his just excellent play going into Boston. I mean, over the last 10 games, this is what Josh Hart has been doing. And he's been averaging 32 minutes, getting you 14 points, shooting 51% from the field, 39% from three on four attempts per game, grabbing about 9 rebounds, and getting you over 6 assists per game too. And he's getting you 2 steals as well. So Josh has just been all over the place while playing for the Knicks, and that's what you need, man. You just need a guy who's going to be an energizer bunny, willing to just, you know, fill the stat sheet in a multitude of ways, and play not only a pivotal part as a playmaker, but also as a rebounder. I mean, you talk about Mitchell Robinson, Josh Hart, one of the best rebounding guards in the league. And when he gets those rebounds and is willing to push and get out in transition and either finish himself or, cause havoc, just cause the defense to collapse in the paint and then find somebody out on the perimeter, he's been doing a phenomenal job at that as well. And then defensively, I think he's been really showing out defensively these last couple of games. I mean, last night against Toronto, he was really just battling everybody who was in front of him. And then you talk about in the NBA Cup going against the Milwaukee Bucks, I thought he did a phenomenal job just defending Giannis. Like, yes, Giannis is a tough cover. He wasn't going to shut him down, but I thought he gave him enough resistance just to just be a pest. And so I like what Josh Hart's been doing. So he's going to be my X factor for tomorrow's game. And then with regards to who I think the Celtics for their X factor, I'm gonna go with Peyton Pritchard, man. That's a guy who I just don't want to see cook, man, because I've seen enough of him. Just, not necessarily against the Knicks, but I've just seen enough of him going against other teams where I'm like, all right, if this guy gets going, it's just too much confidence. He has too much swagger where it's like next thing you know, he's just gonna be pulling up for logo threes, and that's just backbreaking, man. And especially a team that doesn't guard the three that well, that's the last thing we need, is somebody just be in their bag, feeling themselves all night long, and then just raising the confidence of the entire team, because that's the other thing. Not only does his confidence raise, but the entire team for the Celtics raise when he starts get going. So that's going to be my X factor for the Celtics. So I got Josh Hart and Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah, Pritchard has struggled against this team. If he can have a big night, I think that makes a difference. Someone in that backcourt has to, between those two, because at times this year they've both struggled from three. If they're forced to take a lot of them away from pressure on Jaylen and they're missing them, that's tough. Sam Hauser's in that department too. He's been getting a lot of open looks and he's struggled to knock them down this year. So this team is starting to creep up in terms of their effectiveness from three. I think they're up from up to 35% this season, middle of the pack after starting the year bottom five. So they're climbing their way up. Opponents are coming down to earth a little bit from like 38%, I'd say, down to 36. So it's still an area where they're facing a little bit of a deficit. As I mentioned, they never get to the free throw line. They foul a lot. So that's it's almost like an 8-point hole that they're in to begin every game at the free throw line. But they've been great on the offensive glass. Few teams have turned opponents over at the effectiveness they've had in that area. So that's something that the Knicks are going to have to watch out for, control the ball. And, the rebounding game is going to be an advantage that they have in this one. So the shooting is where the Celtics have to prevail here. And sometimes that can go in either direction. If there's a hot night for them from three, as it was against Detroit a week ago, I think they were 42% in that one. That's a good formula for the Celtics winning this game. I think the Knicks will have a tough time matching up with that if that's the way that this one goes.
Hey, we'll see what happens tomorrow, Bobby. We'll see what happens tomorrow. It should be a good one. It should be a nice game now that this will be the 20th game of the regular season. Both teams, going through their own journeys. Now they get that rematch after, facing up after game 2 of the regular season. It's going to be a nice one, man, to see how they've just settled in and starting to, grow into their identities, man. So I'm looking forward to it, man. But Bobby, appreciate you coming through as always. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If you got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
Yeah, CLNSmedia.com for all the writing. The Garden Report is live after every game. So for all the people watching on YouTube, if you want to jump in our chat room after the game, talk some ish, you can get in there and chat up with us. So as they often do, I don't even need to ask them to. They're always there after those games, and still a lot of chirping about what went down in May. I think for all the listeners here, they know what I said going into that series.
Oh, they know. They know. They absolutely know, Bobby. They are in the comments section after every show, remembering what you said.
Yeah, and that's well deserved. Probably the worst take of my career, but I owned it, and Knicks are on the better things. Celtics are trying to figure it out here. I'll ask you this before we leave. Do you think Tatum's going to play this year, or do you think it's a lot of BS?
I don't know, man. I mean, look, I know everyone talks about him getting the surgery so early to get the surgery done before the swelling actually occurred, so that way he can have a faster recovery time. I know that's been out there, and there's been, a whole conversation about that. I don't know, man. I feel like, honestly, I actually do feel like he will return this season. I feel like I feel like we will see him this season. What's the 9-month mark from May? What is 9 months after that? Let me do a quick Google and see. What is 9 months?
February.
After is it February? Damn.
Mm-hmm. 10 would be March. 11 would be April, like mid-April. Because obviously he got hurt in May, right? In that playoff series. So
what was the fastest? I think Adrian Peterson was the fastest, right, to recover after his Achilles tear?
Yeah, a lot of football players have come back fast. Basketball, you are talking about 10, 11, 12 months, typically. Murray's about to come back, DeJounte Murray, if he's back on New Year's, around 12 months.
Okay.
So that's where Tatum's at in terms of his timeline. You're probably not seeing him this year. But if he's on this record pace, as they keep touting, late March, early April, I could see.
I can see March. I can see March, yeah, for a couple games. It all depends, man. Like, if I'm the Celtics, like, why even rush and just put him in harm's way? Unless, like, he's really feeling that good. But, man, when I start seeing guys just, like, out of boots and shooting and doing everything, it makes me think, like, what's going on? So, I don't know. Do you feel like he's going to come back soon this season, or do you think it's going to be next year?
I think we'll see a little bit of him at the end, if I had to guess. I think that's what he's laser focused on. I think that at some point you have to get your feet under you and start getting confidence back playing in games. So there's a lot of talk, if they're in it, he'll play, if they're not, he'll just sit it. I don't think that's going to be it. I think when he's ready, he's going to give it a go. He won't be back a second sooner than that point when he's 100% ready. And just given all the things that are working in his favor, the timeline of the surgery, the kind of surgery he got, the new wave techniques that they use here. This was great. I think people should check this out. I actually had a good conversation with Kevin Durant about how much this surgery has progressed since he went through it. And that wasn't even that long ago, in 2019. So there's a new technique that they use that's much less invasive, better results coming back. A lot of football players have gone through that. So that, along with his age, I think bodes well for a record return this year. So I have no idea, right? I don't think anyone does, even him at this point. Like, they got to see how this goes. But just considering everything we've heard and seen, he's very visible with his workouts and everything he's doing. I would guess we see a little bit of him at the end of the year. How much does that factor into a playoff run or what's going to happen here? We'll see. I'll say this. If he does come back, I wouldn't bet on him being Tatum off the bat. I think there's going to be a process for him to get back to being himself.
For sure.
I do think we'll see him.
That's a whole work in progress for him to be the guy who he was prior to the injury. So I don't know, man, but we'll see. I would not be surprised if he comes back in March, just based on all the work that he's putting in. But appreciate you once again, Bobby. Appreciate you always for joining the show. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure to share these videos with a friend, to a family member, whatever it may be, so that way we continue to grow. Man, we're closing in on 100,000 subscribers, so it only helps if you guys can help continue to share these videos and let the people know about the movement that we got going on over here. All right, so we appreciate that. Also, remember to support our sponsors. Once again, Harry's. If you want a better blade for shaving, make sure to go to harrys.com/KFTV and to go claim your Harry's Plus trial set for only $10. Okay, so just go to harrys.com/KFTV and don't forget about ZBiotics as well. Okay, you can go to zbiotics.com/KFTV. Use that code KFTV to get 15% off your first order. Okay. Who wants to wake up with a hangover, man? Nobody does. So make sure to go get that so that way you can continue on with your daily routines the next following day. And make sure to subscribe to the newsletter. That's how you keep abreast of everything that's going on at KFTV with merch, sponsors. We got great written content over there as well. So make sure to go check that out too. Shout out to all of our franchise channel members. Appreciate you for tapping as always. I see Zach in here. I see John Talento. Who else we got in here? I see Whitaker Wright. Appreciate you. We got Eric Horn. Shout out to you being in here as well. We got Daddy New Legs. Appreciate you. Darren Wilkerson. Appreciate all of you for being here for another Game of the Week preview. And shout out to all our mods, man. Shout out to all the mods. Shout out to CP for producing the show. Shout out to Gamma for all the graphics. All right, everyone. We'll catch you for tomorrow for postgame when the Knicks take on the Celtics. All right, everyone. We out.
Peace. Thank you, guys.